What's up everybody, 40 the Broadway Saiyan here, and welcome back again to my YouTube channel. And in this Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis video, I'm finally going to give you guys my thoughts about this game after it's been out for a little over a week now. There are good things that I'm definitely going to be addressing, and some things that could definitely use some improvement. So let's just get right into it, starting with the good stuff. One of the things that I think are great about this game is the visuals. The visuals come directly from Final Fantasy VII Remake. They are of lower resolution because, they have to be able to be fine-tuned to a mobile game and, be able to play on like devices nowadays, but they look great. They honestly look really, really good. In terms of the aesthetics, the game looks awesome. Not to mention the visuals that they use for the story. You have a little bit of nostalgia with the way that the sprites look. There's a little bit of that polygonal aspect to it, like how it looked in the original Final Fantasy VII, but then there's a modern twist to it where they actually smooth out, the arms, the legs. You can actually see a face. It looks really good, and truth be told, if they ever made a Final Fantasy VII, the original, a remake of just that, but they used those models and it played just like the original, I'd totally play that. But those look really, really good. I think the graphics for this game and the aesthetics look absolutely awesome compared to some other mobile games that I've seen that use similar type graphics. The graphics for this game are, really, really nice to look at. I think the combat has a good flow to it. It's not overly complicated. You have an ATB bar, you have your skills that cost a certain, ATB gauge. You also have your limit breaks, which is pretty self-explanatory, to activate. You also have the two different stances. It's not hard to understand at all in terms of like just the combat itself. I think the combat is simple, which is important nowadays, especially for JRPGs. You don't want to overcomplicate the combat system. So the combat system for me gets a thumbs up because I actually think it's not too difficult to understand. And if somebody were to pick up this game from the get-go and try to understand the combat system, I think that it's actually not too bad. Another thing that I love about this game is the music. We all know how great Final Fantasy VII, or even just Final Fantasy in general, music is. You got great composers like Nobuo Uematsu that have delivered us these legendary tracks. These tracks for Final Fantasy VII Ever Crisis are definitely familiar, but they've been essentially remastered and remodernized for this game. So it's very refreshing to hear these, familiar tracks, but in this modern manner, like with instrumentation and stuff. I love it. I actually really, really love the renditions of the music for this game. Another thing that I like about this game that I think is a plus is the amount of content that you're able to do. So you got story that they're going to be updating monthly. You got your events, you got your different quests where you got to collect materials. You have your dungeons, such as the Criterion and the Crisis dungeons. What else do you have? The tower. To me, that's a lot of content to be able to do. And as long as you're not rushing it, I know there's some people out there that just rushed it and now they're like, well, what do I have to do now? I would recommend taking it at kind of like a marathon-ish kind of a pace. Like, pace yourself, because if you just rush it, then you're just gonna log in and like you're gonna try to figure out what to do and you can't really figure out what to do. You know what I mean? So don't rush it. That's just my advice. But I think the game has plenty of content to do and it's great. So then that way there's always something for you to pick from if you're looking for something to do within the game. And then another thing is I'm going to talk about a little bit of the gacha. I think the systems that they use are pretty cool. So you got your wish list and you also got the stamp system. The systems themselves are pretty cool. And I like that the rates for the 5 stars aren't too bad. They're at 7.5%, which is pretty good compared to other gacha games out there. And I like how dupes, like if you get like even like a dupe 3-star, dupe 4-star, they matter. They actually mean something instead of just like, oh, I got trash. Like they're dupes that could later be used to overboost an existing 5-star. Or for example, if you have a 4-star and you get the 5-star, the 5-star takes its place. I think that system is actually pretty brilliant and it's very, very good. So that way you don't necessarily feel, at least for me, too discouraged whenever you pull just a bunch of 4-stars. It's because at least those 4-stars, if they're dupes, they can go towards eventually over boosting that weapon. So those particular systems within the gacha I think are really cool that they have that in place. Okay, so what else did I miss? Co-op. Oh, I like co-op. I actually think co-op is pretty fun. I wish there were more people that did it, but I think it depends on what kind of events are going on. Because right now, I'm actually able to consistently find co-op with the Tonberry one, because everybody's farming that one, or at least a majority of players are. But I actually like the flow of co-op. I think it's pretty simple. I like that there is a room code, because there's another topic that I'm going to talk about that yeah, I'm not a big fan of how they handled it, but at least there's a room code. So the room code allows pretty much anyone to be able to join your room as long as they have the code, which I think is super, super cool. Okay, I've covered the good. Now it's time to cover the things that need to be improved. The first thing that needs to be improved is the lack of explanation on certain mechanics in the game, or rewording certain things so that it's a little bit easier to understand, because there's a lot of things in this game where if you don't play around with it and figure it out, you never would have known that that's how it worked. Like, for example, in my case, the support materia. You guys know that I made a mistake on that and I created a video on it, but you know, in the game it tells you, you know, it supports the abilities of the materia. But what it doesn't tell you is that that materia has to have something that's related to the support materia. So if you have the physical damage up support materia, you need to have a physical type materia on there. The game doesn't really explain that to you. So I think there has to be a way that they could word it to where the player can understand, oh, if I have this materia, then I need to have this materia. That way it's a little bit easier to understand, and there's not too much fine-tuning and trial and error that the player has to do. And I'm speaking from the perspective of like a new or casual player that just wants to try this game out and just have a overall fun experience without having to feel overwhelmed. Another thing that they didn't directly explain, at least unless I missed it, is I didn't know that those two stances in combat, the attack and guard stance, that they had their own, well, they share a gauge essentially, but I didn't know that until somebody pointed it out. I had no idea that that diamond actually had the outline filling up, and I was like, I never would have known that unless somebody pointed that out. And I mean, they did talk about that in the tutorial, but I don't recall them ever mentioning that. If they did, it was like really, really quick, and it didn't give you a chance to really like absorb what that really was about. So just some of the things need to be reworded or need to be better explained, because like I said, from a new player's perspective, it could be a bit overwhelming when they come into this and they're like, oh, what do I do here? What do I do there? And then they get confused with certain mechanics. I think that needs to be improved, in my opinion. Some of the other things that need to be improved, I still don't think the UI looks great. I know that they were talking about the UI from the closed beta feedback. It still doesn't look that great to me. And the navigation is wonky. Like if you click on something, like let's say like you click on a weapon, you want to, let's say, uncap its level. And let's say you select the material you need. It takes you to the stage. You go through the stage. You should be able to be brought back to the enhanced screen. Other games do that. This game doesn't really do that. It's like you gotta cycle through a ton of menus just to kind of go from one to the other, instead of like it just bringing you back from where you started. Like it bookmarks it, so then the game knows, oh, okay, you know, this person is working on a stat stream, but they need this and they're trying to look for this. Like allow it to take you back to where you were, so then you don't have to over-navigate through these different options, because there's a lot in the interface, and I still think that this could definitely be improved. You know, again, some of the wording is kind of confusing. Like when you click on growth and you click characters, you would think that it would actually show you a list of characters, but instead it takes you to the stat stream. As from a new player, I would be like, what the heck is this, right? And then to actually get to the list of characters, you have to click on the bottom right here. Like, I think that could definitely be fine-tuned so that it's not too overly confusing. So that still needs to be improved, because I honestly don't really see that much of a difference compared to the closed beta. Another thing that needs to be improved is the limited time bundles they like to throw in your face. That should just be left to the notification that you get at the top. When you unlock it and it says, you've unlocked a limited time item in the shop, it should be the player's decision to go in there and check out what that is, not for the game to give you that notification and then throw it at your face. You know, that is actually pretty predatory. I know I was kind of talking about that in my video about the monetization, but I've actually come to realize, you know, that is pretty predatory. I think if they just left it to the notification and the player to discover what that is, that's perfectly fine. But constantly throwing that stuff at us, I think they just need to remove that entirely, because it's annoying, it's disruptive, and yeah, it's preying upon your your potential addiction or gambling. You know, let's just keep it real. You know, let's just keep it real. So that definitely needs to be fixed. The friends list and the friend request. Why are we only regulated to 30 friends? That doesn't make any sense. Even Dissidia Opera Omnia, where I've had issues with that game's friends list, I think we can have up to, like, if I recall, 200 friends. This one, 30? And not to mention, if your request inbox is full, No one can send you requests. So why, if you're gonna put a cap on the friends list, a really tiny cap, why are you capping the requests? That, to me, that doesn't make any sense. You know, I mean, at least the co-op has the code to be able to enter the room, so they don't necessarily have to be your friend, but at least give us more space on our friends list, you know? Like, so then, like, let's say I want to invite someone specific, I can just send them the invite, you know? It just, overall, that needs to be improved. I think that definitely needs to be improved. The stamina system. In the beginning, it feels like we get a lot of stamina, and, you know, there's been a lot of advice out there from other creators. They're great guides about how to be smart with your stamina. But as you get towards the end game, you start to feel the lack of stamina. And I know they just gave us some stamina potions, but once those run dry, and if you're in end game, it's like, ooh, you could really, really feel the lack of stamina that they give out. Like, you can really feel it towards the end game. So they either should create, for example, a system that, like, let's say, like, a certain portion of content uses stamina, and then another one, for example, co-op, I don't think should use stamina. That's just, that should use something else. Like in Dissidia Opera Omnia, I know I keep referencing that game. That was my main game for 5 years. They use the stamina potions. Because that game actually doesn't have stamina for a majority of its content, but for the co-op, there is, and it's like the stamina pots. They could do something with that here rather than it consuming your stamina, which is also consumed across almost every other piece of content, minus the what is that? The battle tower. That definitely they need to take a look into that and maybe create a system where certain pieces of game modes can not use stamina, because towards the end, you really start to feel the lack of it. You really, really do. And then and then if you go into the shop and you see like their daily stamina bundle, if you're a light spender, it's not worth it. It's like $3, but it's not worth it. It's like, really? Like, what is that gonna get me? Like 2 or 3 runs if I'm running a stamina boost on a quest? It's just, yeah, I'm not a fan of the lack of stamina towards the end game. I think that definitely does need to be improved, or find a way for them to be able to give out more stamina, or create another system for some of the game modes to not use stamina and use something else. So then you're not feeling overwhelmed, and you're not feeling like, oh man, I don't have any more stamina, I need to do this, I need to do that. Because there's so many things you have to farm in this game, and it all eats up your stamina. So hopefully they can find a way to improve that. And then another thing for me that gutted me is the change they made to the stamp system. I know there was a Reddit post that was shared to me saying that the stamp system is actually better now. But I don't know. I kind of felt like the closed beta one was still better, where it was a lot more simple. There were only, I think, like 6 variables or something like that, and the 12% chance was that, with the 12 stamps, was at 1%. I mean, 1% is still pretty low, but it's way better than 0.01. And if they kept it at 1%, honestly, I think players would have been really, really happy, and they would have been more inclined to actually spend on your game, rather than having it at 0.01. And not just that, but the other numerical values that you can get off the stamps have been vastly lowered compared to CBT. That's just me, because I played the CBT. I felt like the CBT had a more generous stamp system compared to the one here in the official launch. And then another thing, this could be more of like a gray area, but I think the costumes, I know that the costumes are not the end-all be-all, it's more of the weapons, but the costumes, like, they could consider making like separate bundles for those. Like, what if somebody just wants to buy the costume and they don't want to pull on the banner? You know, they could like create like a bundle where you could buy like the Murasame costume, for example, for Cloud, and you get some gems. Again, another game that does that is Dissidia Opera Omnia. They have bundles for that, where you get the costume for the character and you also get a set amount of gems. That's something that they could definitely consider. I mean, this is a franchise that is arguably the most popular in the Final Fantasy universe. So you have a lot of fans, and you have a lot of fans that will definitely want to monetarily support your game. So I think they could consider something like that, where there could be a bundle that you could purchase that has the costume. Because what if you want to skip the banner and you want to save for like I know a lot of you guys want to save for young Sephiroth, you know, especially those of you that finish the story. You guys want to save for him. I get it. But the amount of banners that we got in less than a week is a little overwhelming, and it's kind of like, oh, you know, And for those of us that just want the costume, it would be nice to have an option to just buy the costume outright, rather than having to pull on a banner that we will end up skipping. So that's just my thoughts on that, and I think that's everything that I wanted to cover. If I forget something, I'll address it in the comments, because I have been responding to all the comments on my videos, because I love interacting with you guys on my videos. You guys have been showing a lot of support, which I appreciate. But that's going to go ahead and conclude my overall thoughts about this game so far. Oh, there was one more thing. Okay, there was one more thing. The Materia System is garbage. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. It is. Okay, it's very there are similarities to the Materia System compared to, let's say, Honkai Star Rail, or another game that I played that had something similar like this was Artery Gear Fusion. But in that sense, you farm for like their gear or their relics, and then you are essentially trying to optimize with good substats. That one, those games, all you had to do was get into combat and you get the gear. And then you look at the gear and you're like, okay, this is not too bad, or okay, this one I probably don't want. In this game, you have to farm for the materials, you have to craft the materia, you have to wait. Sometimes it's quite a long time, depending on the materia that you want, unless you want to use your bookmarks, but I would advise using a ton of bookmarks, because it's not worth the rush, especially for, like, you know, the ones that have a really quick timer. And then after that, the substats are still hidden. You still have to invest in leveling up that materia to see exactly what you get. That is just there's just too many things to do with that system. Like, honestly, that's way too much to find out if you're getting something that's optimum. Like, for real, for real. I think that needs to be reworked, in my honest opinion. I think if they just kept it to where we have a stage, let's say you have like a quest line for like fire materia, different levels. You know, level 1 gives you fire, level 2 gives you fire, and so forth and so forth. And then you get the materia that way, it drops, and then you get to see the substats. That would be a whole lot better. I know it's kind of copying what other games are doing, and this is probably trying to be unique, but the uniqueness, I'm not a fan of it. I'm really not a fan of it. There's just too many things to do, too many mats to farm, and again, everything uses up stamina, so it's kind of like, it hurts when you come across a materia that you farmed mats for, and then you end up getting subpar substats. So that needs to improve. The Materia System is, to me, it's kind of garbage. I'm sorry if I'm being harsh, but I just gotta be, I gotta keep it real with you guys when I see something that's just kind of like, not a fan of this. So yeah. I think that's everything that I wanted to cover. I wanted to make sure that I didn't forget anything, and that's definitely something important that I wanted to address in terms of things that need to improve for this game. So again, this was a bit of a long video, but I wanted to get all my thoughts out there for you guys that watch my channel and watch my content. I'm still definitely going to play this game. This isn't like, oh, 40's only going to play this for a week and he's going to quit. No, I am going to be making a ton of content on this game. I have been waiting for this game, but as a creator for this game, and for those of you that watch me for information and my thoughts and opinions on this game, I want to keep it real with you guys. And when if I see something that could be improved, I'll call it out, because I want this game to succeed. I think this game has a lot of potential to succeed. It carries a very, very popular franchise, and it can definitely succeed as long as they take the constructive criticism, they listen to their community, they communicate well, and they implement changes that could be for the better, for the future of the game. All right, guys. Well, that's going to go ahead and conclude the video. I know it was a lot. Let me know in the comment section below what you think. What are your thoughts about the game so far? What are the good? What are the bad? I'd love to hear it, and I'd love to reply to your guys' comments and engage. Thank you guys again for watching. Stay tuned for the next video, and stay blessed, everybody.
All the times we fought, we were together.